She held out a tiny puppy, trembling in her arms, her voice barely a whisper. Please buy our puppy, sir. We just need money for food. What she didn't know was that the man in front of her was the CEO who had fired her mother just weeks ago. What happened next? No one expected. Before we dive into this unforgettable story of fate, second chances, and kindness, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Kind World so you never miss a story that touches your heart. The office air was heavy that morning, thick with whispers and tension. Sarah walked through the glass doors with a stack of files in her hand and dark circles under her eyes. Her co-workers glanced at her sympathetically, but no one said a word. She had been working late every night, not just to meet deadlines, but to prove her worth, to hold on to the job that helped her keep the lights on at home and food on the table for her little girl. Lily, she adjusted her worn blazer and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, trying to appear composed as her name echoed across the floor. Sarah Miller, Mr. Grayson would like to see you. Her heart dropped. She had heard the rumors, cutbacks, restructuring, numbers being more important than names. Still, she took a deep breath and walked toward the office at the end of the hallway. Mr. Grayson's office was all glass and steel, cold and immaculate. Behind a large mahogany desk sat the man himself, looking at his screen without glancing up. He motioned for her to sit. She did, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. There was no warmth in the room, no kindness in the way he cleared his throat before speaking. The silence stretched. Sarah, he finally began, still not looking her in the eye. I'll get straight to the point. We're letting you go. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Letting me go, she echoed, barely above a whisper. Why? Mr. Grayson leaned back, fingers steepled. You've been a dedicated employee, but we've had to make some difficult financial decisions. It's not personal, it's just business. Her throat tightened. She wanted to speak, to remind him of the nights she stayed until 10, of the weekends she missed with Lily, the holidays she worked through. She wanted to say that she hadn't taken a real vacation in years, that she had trained new employees without ever being promoted herself. But the words refused to come out. Her pride and her fear choked her. Please, she said softly. I have a daughter. I need this job. Mr. Grayson looked at her for the first time. For a moment, there was something in his eyes, maybe, but it passed quickly. I'm sorry. HR will help you with the paperwork. You'll receive a severance package. She blinked rapidly to stop the tears threatening to spill. A severance package couldn't cover rent, groceries, school, supplies, and medicine. It couldn't tell Lily why Mummy wouldn't be going to work anymore. It couldn't replace the dignity she felt slipping away. She stood slowly, gathering the invisible pieces of her shattered resolve. Thank you, she said, though she didn't know why. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of desperation to cling to a shred of grace. When she opened the office door, a few co-workers looked up, quickly pretending to be focused on their screens. No one met her gaze. No one offered a word. She walked back to her desk, her steps heavy. With trembling hands, she packed her things into a small cardboard box, the photo of Lily in a handmade frame, her lucky mug with a chipped edge, the potted plant that never quite thrived in the office lighting. As she closed the lid, the silence around her was deafening. She took one last look at the desk she had given so much of her life to, then turned and walked out of the office. No one followed. No one called after her. Outside, the wind was sharp against her skin. She held the box close to her chest and blinked into the gray sky. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lily's school reminding parents about the field trip fee due tomorrow. Sarah stared at the screen, unable to move. For the first time in years, she felt truly lost. But even as the weight of uncertainty pressed down on her, she made herself take a step forward, then another. She didn't know what came next, but she knew one thing for certain. She had to keep going, for Lily. The wind was sharp in the small city park that afternoon, biting through the thin fabric of Sarah's coat as she knelt to adjust the sign she and Lily had made from an old cereal box. The words were written in crayon, the edges bent and soggy from the damp air. Puppy for sale, please help. They had tried everything else, sold old toys, cancelled every utility they could, even skipped meals, but it hadn't been enough. The rent was due in 2 days, and the fridge at home held nothing but half a jar of peanut butter and a wilting carrot. Sarah hated being here exposed vulnerable, but when she saw Lily sitting on the park bench, clutching the tiny golden-furred puppy they had raised since birth, she forced herself to breathe. This puppy was the last one. The others had been given away or adopted when things started getting tough. But this one Lily had named Buttercup, and she loved it fiercely. Lily's little fingers stroked the puppy's back, her breath visible in the cold. Her cheeks were rosy from the chill, but her spirit hadn't dimmed. She smiled at every passerby with a kind of innocent faith only a child could carry, one that whispered, "Maybe today someone will stop. Maybe today we'll get lucky." Mummy, she said softly, "if we sell Buttercup, can we get eggs too?" Sarah nodded, swallowing the knot in her throat. "Yes, sweetie. Eggs, and maybe even bread." Lily brightened. She held Buttercup a little higher, as if showcasing treasure. "Then we'll be okay. Just for a little while." One by one, people walked by. Some glanced at the sign with curiosity, others with indifference. A few smiled at Lily but kept walking, pulling their coats tighter around themselves, eyes fixed on their phones or hurrying to somewhere warm. Sarah watched them with a quiet ache, wishing anyone would stop. She wasn't begging for a handout, just a little help, just a chance. It was nearly dusk when he appeared, a tall man in a charcoal suit, overcoat draped perfectly, a leather briefcase swinging at his side. His shoes clicked on the sidewalk with the confidence of someone used to the world moving. For him, he wasn't from this part of town, that much was obvious. He looked out of place against the weathered benches and cracked walkways. He slowed as he approached them, not out of pity, but something else. His eyes caught the sign. Then the woman standing beside her, hair pulled back, shivering but standing proud. And then he froze. Sarah noticed first. Her breath hitched. That face, the sharp jawline, the cold gray eyes. It was him, Mr. Grayson, the CEO who had fired her. Her stomach twisted into a knot. Of all the people to stop, of all the strangers in this city, why him? Lily didn't recognize him, of course. She looked up at him with a hopeful smile, teeth chattering slightly as she clutched the puppy closer to her chest. Her voice was barely louder than the wind, but it reached him all the same. Please, buy our puppy, sir. He didn't speak, didn't move. His eyes were locked on the little girl on her outstretched arms, her frostbitten fingers gripping the warm body of the puppy. On the innocence of her plea, his breath caught, and for a moment, the noises of the city, the horns, the chatter, the footsteps all faded into silence. Sarah turned slightly, shielding Lily without saying a word, her eyes hard. She didn't need anything from him, not his sympathy, not his money, not after what he'd taken from them. But Mr. Grayson didn't walk away. He didn't scoff or offer empty words. He just stood there, frozen in place, as if the weight of recognition had struck him like a sudden gust of wind. The man who had once ended her career with a cold sentence was now face to face with the fragile reality that decision had created. And in front of him stood a little girl, offering all she had left in the world, a puppy, a whisper, and a spark of hope. The sky hung low with winter clouds, dull and gray, casting a somber light over the park. Mr. Grayson stood frozen in front of the little girl, the soft plea still echoing in his ears. "Please, buy our puppy, sir." Her words weren't dramatic or loud, but they were devastating in their honesty. He blinked, forcing himself to breathe, and slowly bent down to meet her eye level. His knees cracked as he crouched, but he barely noticed. What caught him off guard was her face, so open, so hopeful, so unguarded. There was something familiar in her big brown eyes. Not just the color or shape, but the depth, the silent endurance, the kind that didn't belong on a child's face. And then, he saw her, behind the little girl, standing a few feet away, was the woman he had tried to forget, Sarah. Her coat was the same one she used to wear to work, though it now looked more worn. Her hair was pulled back, strands falling loose in the wind. Her face, once full of quiet determination, now looked fragile, tired, and pale. But her eyes still had that fire burning low but steady. Their eyes met. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her expression told him everything. Shame washed over him like cold rain. He had fired her. He'd sat in his office, surrounded by polished wood and business reports, and told her she was no longer needed. She had begged him that day. He remembered now. She had mentioned her daughter, and he'd brushed it off. It's just business. But now, he was seeing the cost of his business. It had a name, a little girl named Lily, and it had a face as etched with exhaustion, standing in a park trying to sell the last thing they had of value, a puppy, to eat, to pay rent, to survive. Grayson felt like someone had punched the air out of his lungs. He tried to speak, but nothing came. The weak asterisk, he tried to speak, but nothing came. The weight of his decisions, the ones made from behind a desk without seeing the human side, settled heavily on his shoulders. Asterisk. Mummy says if we sell Buttercup, we can get food, Lily said softly, holding the puppy out again. Asterisk. Sarah stepped forward, resting a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. Her voice was brittle but steady. How much would you be willing to give, sir? Anything you can spare would help. Asterisk. He looked at her, stunned by how much dignity she still carried, despite the circumstances. No bitterness in her tone, just quiet desperation and guilt. His own guilt rushed through his veins. Grayson reached into his coat pocket, pulled out his leather wallet, and stared at it. What could he give that would make this right? What amount would erase the months she had likely suffered in silence while he went about his days unaware? Asterisk. He opened the checkbook tucked beside his credit cards. His hands trembled not because of the cold, but because he knew no number could fix what he'd broken. Asterisk. Sir. He didn't write a number. Instead, he signed the check and handed it to her. Blank. Sarah froze. What is this? Asterisk. His voice was low, quiet, heavy with remorse. Whatever you need. Asterisk. She stared at the check, disbelief in her eyes. He didn't expect forgiveness, and he wasn't asking for it. But in that moment, he wasn't a CEO. He wasn't a man in a suit or a title on a door. Asterisk. He was just someone who had made a mistake. Asterisk. And was finally beginning to see the cost of it. Asterisk. Sarah clutched the check in one hand and held Lily a little tighter with the other. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they weren't only from shame. Asterisk. They were from the fragile, flickering feelings she hadn't dared to hold on to in a long time. Hope. The hum of the office was the same as always. Worry, keys clacking, phones ringing, but inside Mr. Grayson's corner office, everything had changed. He sat behind his massive desk, staring not at his computer screen, not at the quarterly reports piled beside him, but at the carbon copy of the blank check he'd written days ago. The paper was crisp, but the moment it represented played over and over in his mind like an old film reel. Asterisk. He couldn't stop seeing Lily's eyes, big, hopeful, innocent. Her tiny voice haunted him. Please buy our puppy, sir. Asterisk. He had made many decisions in his career, hard ones, profitable ones, but none had ever followed him home, not like this. None had left a mark so deep. Asterisk. He rubbed his temples, trying to shake the gnawing guilt. It wasn't just regret. It was shame, not for running a business, but for forgetting the humanity behind every name that appeared on a layoff list. Asterisk. Suddenly, he picked up the phone and dialed his HR director. His voice was firm, but unlike before, it carried urgency and sincerity. Asterisk. Find Sarah Miller, he said. I want her back. No, give her a better role, something stable, something that values her. I made a mistake, a big one. Asterisk. The line was quiet for a moment, then the HR director responded with hesitant surprise. Right away, sir. But that wasn't enough. Later that afternoon, Grayson stood at the front door of a modest apartment building across town. He felt out of place. No driver, no briefcase, no polished shoes, just a man who had seen his reflection through the eyes of a little girl and didn't like what he saw. Asterisk. He knocked. Asterisk. The door opened slowly, revealing Sarah, wearing the same tired coat, her expression wary. Behind her, Lily peeked out from the hallway, the puppy nestled in her arms. Asterisk. For a moment, no one spoke. Asterisk. I'm not here as your former boss, Grayson began, his voice quiet. I'm here as someone who didn't see the full picture, someone who owes you more than just an apology. Asterisk. Sarah didn't answer. She wasn't sure what to believe yet. Asterisk. I remember that day in the office, he continued, his voice breaking slightly. You asked me not to let you go. I said it was just business. But it wasn't. It was personal, because every decision like that is personal, whether we want to admit it or not. And seeing you in the park with Lily, it changed everything. Asterisk. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her an envelope. Inside was a formal job offer with a higher position, flexible hours, benefits, and a written commitment to childcare support. It wasn't charity, it was respect. Sarah's hands trembled as she held the paper. I didn't come here to fix everything with money, he added. I came here because you deserved better. You worked hard. You gave everything, and I failed to see that until it was almost too late. Asterisk. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes, not from pity or gratitude, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, truly seen, of being acknowledged after months of being invisible, fighting battles no one cared to notice. Asterisk. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her Voice cracking. Asterisk, you don't have to say anything, he replied. Just know this offer will always be open. You don't owe me anything. I owe you something for every cold moment you endured, for every silent struggle I didn't ask about. Asterisk. Lily stepped beside her mother, looking up at him with the same soft eyes. Are you the nice man who gave Mummy the check? Asterisk. Grayson smiled gently and knelt down, meeting her eye level. I wasn't very nice before, but I'm trying to be now. Asterisk. Lily nodded. Buttercup likes you. Asterisk. Sarah laughed through her tears, a real, tired, but healing laugh. Asterisk. That day, a man who once thought success was only measured in profits learned that sometimes the greatest redemption is not found in boardrooms but in admitting where you went wrong and choosing to make it right. Asterisk. And for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt something she thought she had lost forever: dignity and the quiet beginning of a new chapter. Asterisk. The air buzzed with warmth and quiet joy inside the modest community center. Colorful banners that read Women Rising, voices strong swayed gently as laughter echoed off the walls. Folding chairs lined the room, filled with people from all walks of life: mothers, daughters, neighbors, teachers, and even a few former strangers who had become friends through shared struggle. Asterisk. At the front of the stage, a small golden puppy barked softly as it chased a giggling little girl in circles. Buttercup, still with the family, still loved. Lily's laughter floated through the room like music, her pigtails bouncing as she twirled and hugged her best friend. Asterisk. Behind the podium stood Sarah, not the Sarah who had once walked into a CEO's office trembling, an uncertain but a stronger, steadier version of herself. Her hair was neatly tied back, and her eyes, though still familiar, were brighter now, lit with a fire that had survived the coldest winter of her life. Asterisk. She looked over the sea of faces and paused when her gaze landed on one Mr. Grayson. He sat quietly near the back, no suit jacket this time, no power tie, just a man with hands folded and eyes brimming with emotion. Asterisk. Taking a deep breath, Sarah leaned slightly toward the microphone and began. Asterisk. I used to believe that kindness was something you read about in books or watched in movies, not something real people chose when the world demanded profit, speed, and indifference. But I was wrong. Her voice wavered, but she held strong. A few months ago I lost my job. I lost my sense of direction. I nearly lost hope. And one cold day, in the middle of a park, I stood beside my daughter as she held out our last puppy, trying to help us survive. She looked down at Lily, who was now petting Buttercup with both hands. And then something happened. Not a miracle, not luck, just a whisper. A whisper from a child that reached the heart of the very man who'd once turned me away. The audience was silent, leaning forward, every word landing like a quiet thunder. Kindness doesn't erase the past, she said, her voice steady now, but it can rewrite the future. That day in the park, my little girl changed a man's heart with a whisper, and that man chose to listen. Asterisk. She turned her head slightly just for a moment, looked at Mr. Grayson. Asterisk. And because he